When it comes to hiring great talent, Indeed is all business needs. Their sponsored job feature puts postings at the top of search results, helping employers reach ideal candidates faster. With 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs, according to Indeed data, businesses can build their dream team without delay. No monthly subscriptions or long-term contracts. Employers only pay for results. Every minute, 23 people are hired through Indeed worldwide. Speed up hiring today with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/WonderyUS. Just mention hearing about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Big moments or small moments, they all deserve great style. At Maurice's, we're here to help you show up feeling your best, no matter what's on your calendar. Whether it's a date night, a special event, or just another Tuesday. Our over 800 stylists are here to help. From tried and true denim to head-turning looks, we've got style that fits your life and your budget. Visit your local Maurice's to find fashion fit for you, with a little help from us.
The amazing Kate Casey.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey, and I've got two wild stories for you today. Now, the first is on Paramount Plus. It is a two-part series. It is called Thirst Trap: The Fame, the Fantasy, the Fallout. And if you like social, psychological storytelling, this is right up your alley. So when 21-year-old Canadian landscaper William White posted a lip-syncing video to TikTok, he hardly expected to become an internet sensation overnight. Sparking a thirst trap obsession with lovesick fans, the line between real connection and online fantasy was blurred as he gained millions of fans. Now, what first seemed like innocent interactions with self-formed fan clubs for him, it turned into jealousy, blackmail, and betrayal by the fans who were determined to watch his every single move online. So this has exclusive interviews with his super fans and also William himself. And it is a powerful exploration of internet culture, obsession, and identity in the modern age. So again, William White, 21 years old, a Canadian landscaper. He looks a little bit like John Mellencamp in the Jack and Diane music videos. He's got sparkling blue eyes, brown hair that flops sort of like a surfer, and a wide smile. And he winks a lot at the camera. Well, his simple lip sync to Barry Manilow's Mandy and Paul Anka's Put Your Head on My Shoulder. I know you're like, this is old fogey music. What is he doing? Well, it sparked a whirlwind of viral fame. And again, he grew to over 2 million followers on TikTok. So these fans of his, they embraced the Cougar label and they dubbed themselves Whitey Nation and the Love Army in the middle of the global pandemic. So during a period of isolation, he would give women in their 50s and 60s some interaction. In a time of suffering, he's providing this outlet. And it also seemed to awaken feelings of sensuality for these women who had put their own desires aside. Maybe they had raised a family, maybe they had been deep in work, they had been taking care of elderly parents. This was an outlet. He lifted so many out of depression and gave them bouts of distraction and joy. In Facebook groups that were devoted to him, they would refer to him as a godlike figure and sent during the age of Aquarius to awaken women's sexuality. I'm telling you, they're interviewing these women and they are older and completely obsessed with this guy who lives in Canada and, probably just like scratches his butt every day. So they would wake up early to watch his videos go live just to see him, waking up at like 5 a.m. And then they would make duet videos with their mouths just wide open. His combination of youthful charm, this sort of retro style, and old Hollywood, for lack of a better term, vibe, made him stand out from the sea of Gen Z creators. He was seemingly speaking, or rather lip syncing, just to them. So they began buying merchandise. He's got $35 teddy bears that sold out within 10 minutes. Followers also showered him with money through TikTok's live gifts function and via PayPal donations, just to hear him say their name. So thank you, Kelly Parsons, for your gift, whatever it may be. So during one TikTok live battle week, he made roughly $231,000 in spending on behalf of his fans. According to sources, a group known as the Grotto Girls would send him a regular stipend. And Input magazine had seen recordings of a TikTok live that was run by this group in which members openly discussed their aim to send him something like a $3,000 monthly allowance. If he goes out to dinner, he mentions it in a TikTok live, someone's already called the restaurant to pay the bill. It was crazy. He'd merely just tell them about items he would like, and then they would appear at his door. And when he told fans he was thinking of buying a car, this particular group helped raise $20,000 in 24 hours for just that purpose. And the weird thing is, in the meantime, all of these women that are super obsessed with this guy are also making these groups and becoming friends in the process. So middle-aged women, what they're doing all day is watching this young guy, but they're also making connections with other women who are also completely obsessed with what he does every day. Kind of like middle-aged women pouring through like a celebrity magazine for a kid who's literally a landscaper in Canada. But of course, you know what's going to happen. The fans begin to lose control. They feel at some point like they own him. So there's this quote in the magazine. They say, I've seen women say they'd eat his snot when he had a cold, and I've seen women say they'd lose the light in their lives if he left the internet. Now, this was a woman who went by the name of Joanne in the article. She's 46 years old, from Pennsylvania, and she would troll his followers in a bid to break them of what she felt like was a damaging obsession. Meanwhile, you're 46 and you spend all day long on the internet watching 21-year-old. So she said if he didn't tweet or go live for a day or two, a lot of them would delete their accounts out of anger, or they would get into fights with other women who were also fans. They began to feel as if he was taking advantage of their generosity. If you send him a PayPal during his live and it's large enough, he'll thank you for it. There's some women who send 4 PayPals each live just to hear him say their name. So he's making easy money and he's making tons of it. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, of course, it's going to flip on his side too. When a president arrived at his home, where he lived with his mother, of course, he voiced some discomfort online and the fans didn't take it well. He wasn't it didn't seem like he was happy with the fame that they had provided him. And ultimately, it would lead to stalking. Groups would come to his Canadian town and then try to spot him. So he's upset first the president arrives to his mom's house. And even his mom is like, okay, I think this has gone too far. At first, the mom's kind of weird. She's sort of enjoying it in this weird way. I mean, would you be happy if your young son had middle-aged women like talking about him online and sending gifts? So when the president comes to her house, she's like, okay, this has gone too far. Then they start going to his town to try to spot him. So again, I just want you guys to picture this. He's out with his doofus friends and they're talking about video games. And there's a caravan filled with middle-aged women who are clamoring to find if he's at the local diner. I mean, you're like laughing, but you're like, what is going on? So 2 factions arise. There's the positive side. They believe that William can do no wrong, and they threaten his critics. But then there's also the troll side, and they attack obsessive fans. They're basically like, you guys are losers. So it's like the Jets and the Sharks. So doxing and cyberbullying were sadly the norm amongst most of these followers. And then the whistleblowers charged that he didn't do anything about it in order to profit. So constant fighting. Now, again, unlike most young influencers, his fan base skewed significantly older. Most of these fans projected fantasies, maternal instincts, creepy, I know, or romantic desires onto him. And this dynamic obviously is going to blur the lines between admiration and then obsession. And those communities that formed around him on Facebook and TikTok, where fans competed for his attention, they dissected his personal life and even tracked his family. So some fans treated him less like a performer and it's more like an emotional outlet. Because remember, this is during the pandemic where everyone was kind of losing their marbles. So someone who owed them intimacy in return for their loyalty and financial support through gifts, live streams, Patreon-style platforms, this is what placed William in this difficult position of trying to set some boundaries, but without alienating the very audience that had fueled his rise. The intensity of this fandom occasionally tipped into unhealthy territory. Like these fans would, like I said, track his whereabouts. They would speculate about his relationships and spread rumors. Then there's the financial pressure. Suddenly, his fans sometimes expected direct emotional reciprocity. So that made it very difficult because making the transactions felt exploitive on both sides. And then he's growing tired of the interactions and he's lashing out. And there were a few that he targeted and dared to criticize. And then, of course, there's the backlash cycle. So when he disappoints expectations by not engaging enough or showing interest in someone else or simply setting limits, the fan group sometimes turned hostile and organized against him online. And then it prompted someone to release videos and photos that he had taken, sabotaging him. So all is to say, it's creating this volatile environment where praise and harassment can flip overnight, and then it adds stress to his personal and professional life. And you're asking yourself, was it worth it to make yourself become the obsession based on these lip sync videos, which, by the way, he can't even lip sync on beat. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not on beat.
The weather's cooling down and the days are getting shorter, which makes me want to make my space even cozier. And Wayfair is the place to go. And I'm going to tell you the greatest purchase we made from Wayfair, a trampoline for our backyard. Hayes is doing back handsprings at every chance, and the kids can burn off energy before tackling homework. As my trusted destination for all things home, Wayfair's got everything that you need to cozify your space this fall, from comfy chairs to warm bedding and autumn decor. And don't you think that your living room needs updated pillows and throw blankets? And what about some new furniture so you can invite the new neighbors over for a dinner party? And for those of you who work at home, you probably need some new lighting or maybe a new rug. My recommendation, a gorgeous framed photo for the wall. There's something for every style and every home, no matter your space or budget. Wayfair makes it easy to tackle your home goals with room ideas and curated collections. And it's free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff. No more huge delivery fees for furniture. And no need to shop at multiple stores. Furniture, decor, appliances, cookware, all in one place. So cozify your space with Wayfair's curated collection of easy, affordable fall updates. From comfy recliners to cozy bedding and autumn decor, find it all for way less at wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
And now, a next-level moment from AT&T Business. Say you've sent out a gigantic shipment of pillows, and they need to be there in time for International Sleep Day. You've got AT&T 5G, so you're fully confident. But the vendor isn't responding, and International Sleep Day is tomorrow. Luckily, AT&T 5G lets you deal with any issues with ease, so the pillows will get delivered and everyone can sleep soundly, especially you. AT&T 5G requires a compatible plan and device. Coverage not available everywhere. Learn more at att.com/5G network.
So what's interesting about this series is that he is pretty open about how this dovetailed into this admission of addiction issues on his part. So I think that by the way, I have to also add, at one point, one of the fans comes to see him and he's like taking pictures with them. He invites one of them back up to his hotel room and they get it on. And when the other fans found out about this, they literally lost their minds. So I'm thinking of this admission of guilt or of the addiction issue. I think that when people struggle with these lurking addiction issues and they become influencers, the dynamics of social media are often worsening their challenges. So platforms are built to trigger dopamine through the likes and the engagement. We know this. And that mirrors the reward loops of substance abuse. So it creates a cycle of compulsive seeking. Then at the same time, influencers are facing this constant pressure to perform and remain relevant. And the stress of producing content and living under public scrutiny can obviously then sometimes drive them to substances as a coping mechanism. And I felt like this was very much in the case of William White. So their personal and their public lives often blur. It leaves little space for privacy or recovery. And then exposure to the criticism and the cancel culture then heightens the anxiety and the relapse risk. Then on top of this, The lifestyle frequently involves events and parties and travel where addictive behaviors are obviously normalized, and then that makes recovery even more difficult. And that is why I thought this was an interesting story, because when you look at it on paper, you're like, this is the dumbest story. It's like a 21-year-old who's just like mowing lawns and then makes these videos. And for some reason, women obsess over them. And then you kind of figuring out, okay, they're feeling this sexual awakening for the first time in a while in the middle of a global pandemic. And then they are sending him obscene amounts of money. And then they're angry because they're sending it and he's not giving them the attention they want. And some of the women, this is like, years later, they're still involved in his life. At one point, he goes to Greece to get a baptism and he hops on a horse and he's going into the water. And one of the women is there. And she's like, he's a really good friend of mine. I'm like, how is he your friend? He's 21, or now he's like 25 or 26. But she's, I don't know, probably 30 years older. And it is really fascinating. And honestly, it's just so sad. So many of these older women are seeking the attention of someone younger who they're never going to meet as this outlet, especially when it's never reciprocated. I guess in the end, I think it's just a conversation starter about living in an era that's dominated by viral content and digital fame. And Thirst Trap kind of reflects on these pressures and the emotional consequences of what happens when you have this sudden popularity. And it's also challenging viewers to rethink how they consume their internet culture and then how we contribute to it. This exploration of internet culture, obsession, and identity in the modern age. So again, if you like some of these social, psychological storytelling projects, I think this is right up your alley. Again, it's called Thirst Trap. The fame, the fantasy, the fallout, it is on Paramount Plus. It's going to be interesting to follow up with this young man in a couple of years to see whether or not he came out of this. And I would hope that he just moves to another part of the country and gets a real job and tries to build something that's outside of social media. But they do show that he had at one point, he's like, that's it. I'm saying goodbye. I'm off social media. But then he comes back 2 days later. I think it's like what you see with a lot of housewives. The addiction to fame is so real and so deep and so complicated. So I'm recommending it to you. I really want you to watch it and then circle back with me and let me know what you think about it. Now, a second story, Ruby Red-Handed Stealing America's Most Famous Pair of Shoes is on Hulu and also on Hulu on Disney+. So Grand Rapids, Minnesota, a quiet town in the north, it's forever marked as the birthplace of Judy Garland and became the stage for one of the most audacious heists in American history. So at its heart was a pair of shoes that were never just shoes. The ruby red slippers, immortalized in The Wizard of Oz, are among the most beloved treasures in film history. You've probably seen a pair if you've been to the Smithsonian Museum. It's more than just a mere costume. They embodied hope, dreams, and the uniquely American promise that no matter how far we wander, there is always a way home. For generations, their glimmering sequins have carried a spell of nostalgia, wonder, and magic. You probably remember where you were when you first saw The Wizard of Oz. It's a movie that we love to pass on to our kids as well. Well, one pair in particular, known as the traveling shoes, belonged to collector Michael Shaw. And for decades, they toured the nation, dazzling fans eager to touch a piece of Hollywood's golden age. But in 2005, when he loaned the slippers to the Judy Garland Museum in her hometown, their journey took a darker turn. Under the cover of night, they vanished, stolen in a brazen heist that left the museum and the world reeling. That mystery would endure for more than a decade. Lead after lead fizzled, investigator after investigator hit dead ends, and the case seemed destined to remain unsolved. But that was until 2018, when the pieces began to fall into place. And against all odds, the ruby slippers were recovered and at long last returned to Michael Shaw. But their story did not end there. In December of 2024, the slippers stepped into history once again, selling in a public auction for an astonishing $32.5 million. That was the highest sum ever paid for a piece of Hollywood memorabilia. Today, only 4 surviving pairs of the slippers are known to exist from the 1939 classic. They are not merely artifacts, they are relics of America's imagination. They're reminders of cinema's power, Judy Garland's legacy, and the timeless belief that there's really no place like home. So in Ruby Red-Handed, investigative journalist Maria Oz pulls back the curtain on this extraordinary case. Through oddball leads, strange discoveries, and unforgettable characters, she's chasing this story as strange and sparkling as the slippers themselves. So you get to hear shortly the interview that I did with Maria. Now, you may remember that I just interviewed her recently about the Jody Huisentruit doc as well. So at the end of that interview, we talk a little bit about what has happened since that project aired. And also added to the Ruby Red Slipper story, the craziest part, not only do I know the person that bought Judy Garland's house and currently lives in her old Hollywood house, but I also know one of the owners of the 4 pairs of Ruby slippers. Here is my interview with Maria.
It's your man, Nick Cannon, and I'm here to bring you my new podcast, Nick Cannon at Night. I've heard y'all been needing some advice in the love department. So who better to help than yours truly? Nah, I'm serious. Every week, I'm bringing out some of my celebrity friends and the best experts in the business to answer your most intimate relationship questions. Having problems with your man? We got you. Catching feelings for your sneaky link? Let's make sure it's the real deal first. Ready to bring toys into the bedroom? Let's talk about it. Consider this a non-judgment zone to ask your questions when it comes to sex and modern dating in relationships, friendships, situationships, and everything in between. It's gonna be sexy, freaky, messy, and you know what? You'll just have to watch the show. So don't be shy. Join the conversation and head over to YouTube to watch Nick Cannon at Night or subscribe on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Want to watch episodes early and ad-free? Join Wondery Plus right now.
How hard is it to kill a planet? Maybe all it takes is a little drilling, some mining, and a whole lot of carbon pumped into the atmosphere. When you see what's left, it starts to look like a crime scene.
Are we really safe? Is our water safe? You destroyed our town.
And crimes like that, they don't just happen.
We call things accidents. There is no accident. This was 100% preventable.
They're the result of choices by people. Ruthless oil tycoons, corrupt politicians, even organized crime. These are the stories we need to be telling about our changing planet. Stories of scams, murders, and cover-ups that are about us and the things we're doing to either protect the Earth or destroy it. Follow Lawless Planet on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to new episodes of Lawless Planet early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
How did this story come to you?
This story, we actually were looking into doing just a television series pitch for a show about pop culture artifacts. Where did some of these interesting things from movies and television shows end up? And being from Minnesota, I knew that there was a story that the Ruby slippers had been stolen from a museum north of Minneapolis-St. Paul. So Grand Rapids, Minnesota. It's about 2.5 hours north. And so we went up there to film, just thinking we would do a little story on these shoes. Well, we happened to be up there at the exact time that there was a tip that had come in, which seemed like it just might be the one that would lead to this missing pair of shoes that had been stolen from the museum. I think it was 13 years earlier. So this was in 2018. We were up there. The shoes are stolen in 2005. And so we're like, well, maybe that's the real story here we should be following. And we did. So I've been chasing the story of the stolen slippers since 2018.
And at what point did you realize this is not the story that I had expected it to be?
Immediately. Yeah. This story is filled with crazy characters, interesting coincidences, real investigative stuff, secret search warrants, just all kinds of different things. And I thought there's not really a story that is more of it's like a caper. It's like a true crime caper. I think that's how I would put it. And in a world where I'm usually doing stories about missing people or homicides or things like that, I have to say it was a nice break to be doing sort of true crime light a little bit for a while.
Well, first, can you talk a little bit about the world of collectors, the ones that are collecting items of Hollywood history, cultural memory?
Right. There is a huge world, a huge group of people now who are interested in collecting, memorabilia from their favorite movies and TV shows. And, you can buy certain things, signed, autographed, whatever on eBay even, or go to auctions. And it's a huge thing right now. People spend millions of dollars annually on this stuff. Back in the day, at the time that, post Wizard of Oz and those couple decades after that, it wasn't like this. It really wasn't, and people didn't realize the value of these props and costumes and things. But now, I mean, it is like a huge business. I don't know why people didn't think it would be so popular, because these things mean a lot to people. Then, you remember the movie you saw on your first date, or some, family member watching, you're watching with your family some particular show. And I think you want to grab a piece of that. You want to have it forever.
So let's talk about the shoes. There were 4 pairs made. What size? What were the shoes made of?
Well, let's just say her feet were tiny, in my opinion. Her feet were about a 5.5. I think one of the pairs was maybe a 6, but there were a few different pairs made. Actually, no one knows exactly how many pairs of shoes were made. There could be other pairs out there, but certainly not very many. But they were created, they had to have several pairs because she was dancing. She was going down the Yellow Brick Road, all of that. And so they were just part of the costume. And they originally in the book, The Wizard of Oz, were supposed to be silver, but Technicolor, that's what The Wizard of Oz is known for, had to make a change, had to make them ruby red. And that was a good choice. I mean, I think this is the most iconic movie artifact that exists.
And the cost of the shoes, there was this expectation that they were worth so much because, as you noted, the Technicolor on camera, they sparkled in a way that it would look like they were actual jewels on the shoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these were just sequins sewn onto a shoe. We talk a little bit about how they were made in the documentary, but I think, if I remember correctly, they cost about $12 possibly to make. And, the pair that just sold at auction, $28 million. That is a great return on investment.
No kidding.
But it is such a unique story. I mean, it just shows you how we attach value to things, right?
Mm-hmm.
That monetary value to things, which is really emotional value. What the emotional value of the artifact is what drives that price up. But it certainly is an iconic and unique piece to own.
Were there any details about this case that surprised you as you began to do this research?
I think a lot of details surprised me. This is a story when they were originally stolen in 2005. This is a small town in Minnesota, Grand Rapids, Minnesota, not Michigan, where they were taken, and people thought it's got to be a local prank. Like, who is going to come up here and steal this pair of shoes? And do they even really know what they're worth? At the time they were stolen, I think it was estimated they were worth about $1 million, which is still a lot. They were on loan to the museum by a collector, Michael Shaw. And, I just don't think anyone believed it could be more than a local theft, right? And then as the investigation went on, I think there was a realization that, this was publicized. These shoes are very valuable. They are very unique. Could this be part of a black market arts and antiquities ring of some sort? They're looking at that. They're looking at getting tips in from all over the country of people who think they found the shoes. That's the other thing about the shoes. They're very often mimicked, right? I mean, not necessarily super well, but there's a lot of red sequin shoes out there. So the police find themselves chasing all these different leads, which don't pan out, certainly until the one that did.
So, I mean, this case was unsolved for over a decade. What made this such a difficult case for investigators?
There was not a lot of evidence here. So whoever stole the shoes broke into the museum in the middle of the night, smashed the plexiglass case that these slippers were in, and took the shoes, wearing gloves. There's like one sequin left behind, and there's not really anything else to go on. There's not security cameras outside. There were no
crazy
security cameras recording inside. I mean, as somebody in our film says, it was kind of the perfect crime. And it really was for a number of years.
I felt so bad for Michael.
Oh, I felt so bad for Michael. I felt terrible for the museum.
Yeah.
To have to, I can't even imagine making the phone call to Michael to tell him that his shoes had been stolen. And, we talked to the museum director at the time, John Kelsch, about that in the film. I felt bad for Grand Rapids. I felt bad for the police department that sort of got a bad rap, at least initially, for like, why aren't you solving this case? How hard could it be? Very hard. I mean, this was a challenging case to solve.
Were there any crazy stories that you were too strange or believable to even include? Like anything that was outside of what you covered that you thought, I just can't even believe this could be a possibility?
I mean, we include some really good ones in there about things that they chased. I don't think there's anything we didn't include that really stood out as that strange. Certainly a lot of, anonymous tips would come in and, vague tips and hinting at the underworld and stuff like that. But how do you even chase that, right? But I do think it plants that seed of, could there be more going on here than just a small town smash and grab? And that's really what we wanted to know, and you'll find out exactly what happened for the first time here, because I think there's some new information that comes out in our show. We did cooperate with the FBI and with the U.S. Attorney's Office to get the real story out there.
It was surprising, though. There was one phone call that you included in it, and you can just hear the fear on the other end. And you think, really? There's such fear. But then when you start talking about the numbers, you can only imagine what people do when they think they have something that no one else has, or it's a sum of that amount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, I don't know. There's stories out there. So the thief, Terry Martin, who came out and, admitted that he is the one who actually took the shoes from the pedestal in the museum. He told a pretty elaborate story of thinking that these shoes had real rubies and really thought that they were going to be valuable. It was only when he took them to a fence to try to sell them that he realized the rubies were real, or were not real. That was his story. But I think, in this documentary, we get a chance to look at that and see, well, is that the whole story? There's a lot more to this story than what he has perhaps indicated, which comes out in here. But you're right. I mean, the things people will do for money or what, but then what do you do? I mean, this story went global after these shoes were stolen. Like, you can't, that's like a really hot piece of memorabilia to try to be selling, right? So, I think that just added to the mystery and also to the reason why those shoes were, just totally off the radar for so many years. Maybe they wanted them to be forgotten about a little bit.
Now, before you go, last time we spoke, you talked about the Jody Huisentruit documentary, a case that I obsessed about forever.
Yes.
After that aired, have you been inundated with tips? I would assume with such a big audience on Hulu that there must have been people that have come forward.
Yes, there have been tips, a number of tips that have been received since that show was broadcast. And we are certainly looking into those tips right now, as is the Mason City Police Department. And, you just never know what else might turn up related to that. But if you haven't seen that, that is also still on Hulu. So please give that a watch. That's her last broadcast, The Abduction of Jody Huisentruit.
Well, thank you so much, as always.
Yes, thank you so much.
I want to thank my great guest, Maria, and make sure that you guys check back with me after you watch both of these projects. I have to know what you think about it, especially Thirst Trap. Make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast and make sure that you also Click subscribe. That's very important. Click subscribe. Please leave a 5-star review and share this with your friends. Share it with the people in your life. I've got bonus episodes on Apple Podcast and Patreon. Go to patreon.com/KKC. And I've got an upcoming special series, bonus series with Mary Payne. And then also you can get my what to watch list at katecasey.substack.com. Lastly, make sure that you follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at @KKCCA, TikTok it's KKC, and Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky at @KKC. Please check back for a very special episode tomorrow.
On Boxing Day 2018, 20-year-old Joy Morgan was last seen at her church, Israel United in Christ, or IUIC.
I just went on my Snapchat and I just see her face plastered everywhere.
This is The Missing Sister, the true story of a woman betrayed by those she trusted most.
IUIC is my family and like the best family that I've ever had.
But IUIC isn't like most churches.
This is a devilish cult.
You know when you get that feeling where you just, I don't want to be here. I want to get out. It's like that feeling of, okay, I want to go home now.
I'm Charlie Brinkhurst-Cuff, and after years of investigating Joy's case, I need to know, what really happened to Joy? Binge all episodes of The Missing Sister exclusively and ad-free right now on Wondery Plus. Start your free trial of Wondery Plus on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or in the Wondery app.